Yeah, listen up. I want to say some things about the days of ancient Danish kings. One of the first was a foundling who flourished, called Shield Chafing, whose great-grandson Hrothgar was in charge of the Danes when this tale is told. The tale of a mead hall harrowed by a terror, and a hero called Beowulf, a massive mead hall. Hrothgar had it built, and after he filled it with dancing and drinking and laughing and singing, happy people. Yeah, but that was brief though. There was a monster prowling on the moors, Grendel, and for him the sound of carousing was just an obnoxious roar. Now Grendel's been called a fiend, cursed by God, a powerful demon. Yeah, lots of awful things, and it's true that the works that he wrought were fiendish, but these were superstitious folk. And yes, I mean both the Christian poet and the old pagan text he rewrote. Grendel's flesh was physical. Now I've heard some outlandish conjectures from critics about how Grendel's cannibalism was essentially different from the psychopathic pleasures of a man like Hannibal Lecter. One theory goes that he was the last of a band of Neanderthal wretches. Another says that he was an apparition, the province of psychoanalysis. Yeah, rabid secularists like me want to cut to the heart of the story. Maybe he had some deformity in his eardrums. Now that would be parsimony. It doesn't matter. You know as well as I do that there's no hell, no gods, no demons, no elves delivering gifts on Noel, and I say oh well. So what if Grendel's nature wasn't clear-cut? All that matters here is the level of fear that he brought to Heorot. They say at night he snuck in, greedy and grim, and murdered 30 men. But even if it was just 3 men, would he be any less of a demon? Grendel left the spear Dane screaming, and they couldn't even deal him a cut. He just killed when he wanted and spilled so much blood that it left a bit of a chill on their fun. So they prayed to their pagan gods for relief. If only they had Jesus. If only they knew what we know now, how Jesus comes to your aid when he's needed. Forgive me for being facetious. It's just that divine intervention was just as non-existent then as now as a help in a time of oppression. What happened instead was that word spread to the 7 seas, to the friends and enemies of the Danes, that Hrothgar's hall stood empty, and it spread to the Geats, to Sweden, to the land of Beowulf, and him and his men donned their chainmail coats and sailed for the Danish coast. And it wasn't long before they stood, sea-swept and rain-soaked, in Hrothgar's great mead hall. And there Beowulf made his famous boast and said, anyone who's ever seen me fight knows that I've never been the type to back down. I've suffered extremes defending the Geats, and I've never had a match till now. But I've heard there's a fiend in your land, a demon who has no fear of reprisal, who creeps in the night and eats you alive and threatens your mere survival. So here's my boast. I've heard it said that Grendel fights with no weapons, so I'll go toe-to-toe with no sword in my hand and no shield by my side for protection. Yeah, hand-to-hand combat, just me and the fiend in a fight to the death. And if Grendel wins, well then best believe he'll be feeding tonight on my flesh. Well, Hrothgar was quite impressed with the strong words of this conqueror, and he ordered a feast to be served to the Geats, and the mead hall was soon full of drunkards. But their comforts were soon disturbed by a servant of the king called Unferth, a weaselly little flea who was eager to see Beowulf's pride get punctured. What vanity, he cried to the crowd. This man lives in a fantasy if he thinks he can defeat such a powerful enemy single-handedly. His accomplishments are nothing but narcissistic, non-existent nonsense. How can you defeat a monster when you even lost to your friend Grekka in a swimming contest? Well, Beowulf wasn't nonplussed by this obnoxious onslaught, nah. He said, use a flea, and I'm the big dog. I scratch off my balls with my motherfucking paws. Besides, bitch, information is wrong. I beat Brekka and cut off the python, tentacles of every motherfucking leviathan that tried it on up in that quiet storm. And anyway, if you had any skill, then Grendel couldn't kill all your men. Is to go back to his den at the end and chill. Well, after that, Unferth, well, basically, he just shut the fuck up. Maybe because of Beowulf's gratuitous use of the word motherfucker. Yeah, it's offensive language, but come on, this is Anglo-Saxon. You can't expect manners for men of action. Nah, that's a plain distraction. Well, after his word clash with Unferth, Beowulf went back to the feast and kept on bragging out loud about how he was gonna tackle the beast. And then Hrothgar went to bed and left the guard to Beowulf and the rest of the Geats. And the fires burned low, and the mead hall was soon fast asleep. And that's when the shadow stalker, Grendel, came greedily loping down from the mountain and out of the mist, cause he could smell fresh human meat for the gulping. And the mead hall was dozing. Every single person in the place was unconscious, except for Beowulf, who lay awake in the darkness waiting for the monster. The hall was erected as a fortress, but Grendel just smashed the doors in with his massive hands and grabbed the first warrior in sight and viciously slashed and gored him. The taste of his flesh was gorgeous, and Grendel was ready for more, just itching to turn the rest of these poor wretches into a pile of dismembered corpses. So he moved like a phantom over to the next man's form on the floor. But that's when he felt a strong hand clamp onto his wrist and twist back his arm. Then Grendel felt the kind of pain that he never in his life had to contemplate, squeezed like by an anaconda snake, and only one thought in his mind, don't fight, run away. But he was boa constricted. Beowulf had him in a death grip. No know how much pain is inflicted, right? When your arm gets twisted. Well, the intended victim was the predator now, and the hall filled with the most pitiful sound. This long, drawn-out, desperate howl like ah! And the Geet warriors surrounded Grendel with their swords drawn and tried to stab him, but none of them could get a blow past him. So they swore that his skin was enchanted by some form of spell casting, so that no physical weapon could scratch him. But what do you think the chances are that they just chickened out and called it magic? I mean, it does sound like one of those embellishments invented by storytellers just to make Beowulf's belligerence and bellicose rhetoric sound like prescience. Yeah, so his men weren't effective, but Grendel's howls were blended now with the sickening sound of ligaments ripping out of position and twisting tendons. Ow! Then his limb disconnected, and Grendel ran back out into the mist, and Beowulf raised his severed arm aloft, still held in his fist. And the Geet warriors gathered round, eager to see the demon flesh, and they all agreed that yes, Grendel was soon gonna bleed to death. And they mounted the arm as a trophy on the wall to inspire their fireside boasting, and troubadours immortalized Beowulf's heroic deeds in their poetry. And I wish I could leave this scene with the Danes and the Geets on Easy Street, but heroes fight demons in threes. So enter Angelina Jolie as Grendel's mother, a feminine killer with collagen lips and swollen breasts. And when Beowulf tried to confront her, all he really wanted was sexes. God damn it, Robert Zemeckis, your Hollywood epic with all of its marketing methods is confounding my honest efforts to keep this poem authentic. It's pathetic. All I see when I picture Grendel's mother instead of a hideous monster is Crispin Glover caressing his digitally rendered mom like an incestuous lover, and I'll never recover, so forget it. If you want to know her actual facial features, ask your 12th grade teachers or college professors. They're the last gatekeepers on tradition. Or read Seamus Haney's version. His verse is amazing, but any pop culture interpretation is subject to virtually unlimited changes. Cause if you try to please the tourists, then the purists get Tourette's and curse you. And if you try to do the reverse, well, the tourists are known for the lack of endurance. So who do I try to please first? Myself, and it usually works. So instead of judging like jurists, just sit back and enjoy the experience. And I'll go back to the story. Actually, you know what? Forget it. I think I'd rather just leave it. If you really want to know how it ends, well then, I guess you better just read it. Go read it. Norton Publishing. Seamus Haney. Dual Language Edition. Old English. Read the introduction too. It's pretty informative. Do not listen to rap music to get an education. It's entertainment. Gotta go read.